My name is Les Schechter, and I worked at ABC in New York from 1965 through 1969. I was originally engaged there to work and do publicity for the ABC News Department, which I did do for a couple of years. Especially, it was a very interesting time because that's when Peter Jennings came in. So we launched Peter Jennings as the anchor man who didn't stay in his anchor seat. That was the whole idea. In those days, ABC was the #3 network, and it was trying very hard to gather an audience and an identification, competing against CBS and NBC. And they decided that they wanted to go for a younger image and a younger audience, which was one of the reasons why they brought in young Peter Jennings from Canada to be the anchor person for their 15-minute nightly newscast. And the gimmick there was he was young, he was good looking, and he would not stay in his anchor chair like the other anchors at the time. He would go out and cover stories when necessary. At the same time, the entertainment division was trying to do the same thing, attract the young audience, differentiate itself from CBS and NBC, and they had Batman that they created at night, for prime time. And then they started making changes in their daytime schedule. And it was at that time that I was transferred from news to do publicity for all the programs that originated from New York, other than the news shows. And in those days, it was the soap operas during the day, and they had a couple of primetime series. NYPD was one with Robert Hooks and Jack Warden and Frank Converse, I remember. And then they introduced a very strange show. They were going to break the mold of the daytime soap opera by creating a gothic daytime series called Dark Shadows. And when it first started, I didn't become involved until maybe two months after it actually went on the air. But when it first started, it was going to focus on the Joan Bennett character. They brought in, she was a major movie star. They brought her in, and it was going to be a gothic story, and and it got going, and it got sort of interesting reviews, and it was got a younger audience, which is what they wanted to do. But it went on for months, and I don't think, like most shows, it didn't catch on right away. It didn't get its audience. And then maybe about 5 or 6 months later, I'm not sure, my memory goes back, they brought on this actor for a 13-week job. And he was going to play a vampire. And people said, vampire? And it turned out to be Jonathan Frid, who was a very nice Shakespearean trained actor who had a Canadian from Hamilton, Canada, outside of Toronto, but he had been a member of the theater group at Yale University, along with another classmate named Dick Cavett. And then he went out and he was working in the regional theaters as a stage actor, and had sort of a run-of-the-mill career for several years until he was hired for this 13-week job on Dark Shadows. And nobody really understood then what might happen. The phenomenon that took place, and it was almost immediate. When he came on the show with his fangs and his cape and his sort of look of mystery and danger, it immediately caught on with the young audience. And there's also a sexual thing about vampires, which must have had a hand in it. But within a few weeks, the audiences really went up. The ratings went up. And ABC realized that they had something unusual here, something unique. And the rest was history for the show. They signed him, I guess, to a long-term contract, and he became one of the major daytime television stars for a number of years. Well, right after Jonathan joined Dark Shadows, and they saw that there was something special about his character, and the way the audience reacted to it. And this included not only the young people, teenagers, college kids, but women in general. Found him sexy and found him mysterious. They realized that he was the key to publicize this show, to get it to the next level. And I was brought aboard about the same time. I was from some other shows that I was doing, and we started to create a campaign. Today we would call it a marketing campaign. Then it was a publicity campaign, and we put out many news releases about Jonathan and his character, focusing mostly on the character, and then trying to set up interviews for Jonathan on radio and on local television. He actually went. ABC had the Dick Cavett show on then, and one of his first network interviews was on the Dick Cavett show. It was a daytime show on ABC, and of course they both knew each other, and they went on and they had a wonderful time together, Dick and Jonathan. And Jonathan still couldn't grasp the fact that he had become an overnight star. After many years trying to work on stage and regional theater, he was suddenly a celebrity. And it was hard for him, like most celebrities, to really grasp that. We set up interviews for John to make sure, that he, first of all, that he got used to his celebrity status, that he got used to doing interviews. It's not easy to do. And then we decided that, hey, we were getting calls from a lot of stations, affiliates around the country, who were noticing the fact that Dark Shadows were really bringing in large audiences for them. So the network decided, with Dan Curtis and the other people involved with the show, hey, why not do a tour, a publicity tour around the country with Jonathan? And one of the first places I remember we went, and I went with him on this one, was to Atlanta, Georgia, to the affiliate there. And when we got there, we had decided that Jonathan, this was hard for him to accept. He wanted to go as Jonathan Frid, and of course the stations wanted him as Barnabas Collins. The fans wanted him as Barnabas Collins. So it took a little convincing that we had to get him to change his clothes on the plane before we arrived at a destination, and to get into put on his cape, put on his fangs, and then we waited till the end, till everybody left the plane, and then we would bring him off. And the local affiliate would arrange for fans to be there at the airport, screaming fans, and of course for the local media to be there, television and reporters and photographers. So when we got off and he walked into the terminal, it was like mayhem. Then they always had, he was there for 2 days mostly, sometimes 3, and they would have dinners for him, cocktail receptions with station supporters. Then they did a fan event, and all the time he had to be Barnabas Collins. And it really was very difficult for him to accept that at the beginning. He wanted to be Jonathan Frid, but they wanted him to be Barnabas, and that's the way to sell the show.